The envelope arrived on a Tuesday The photograph arrived on a Tuesday morning, 7 years after Naomi Thompson had buried the most devastating secret of her life. And the image of the little boy staring back at her made her hands shake so violently she dropped her coffee cup. It shattered across her kitchen floor, dark liquid spreading like a stain across the linoleum, but Naomi barely noticed. She couldn't look away from the picture. A child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing in what looked like Central Park. He wore a navy blue blazer and khaki pants, his dark curls fighting against whatever gel someone had used to tame them. And his eyes, God, those eyes, were gold-flecked brown, exactly like his father's. Exactly like Marcus Ashford IV, the heir to a pharmaceutical empire worth billions, whose family's name graced hospital wings and university buildings across the country. The man who'd paid her $500,000 to disappear forever. Naomi was 25 now, no longer the terrified 19-year-old girl who'd signed away her future in a sterile conference room overlooking Central Park. She'd built a life since then. Small, carefully constructed, deliberately invisible. She worked 2 jobs, lived in a 1-bedroom walk-up in Brooklyn, and every single day she thought about the son she'd given up. The son whose face she'd only seen for 3 perfect, devastating hours before the lawyers came with their papers and their cold assurances that this was best for everyone, especially best for Marcus. If you're listening to this and want more stories like these, stories about the secrets we bury and the truths that refuse to stay hidden, make sure to follow along. These journeys remind us that our stories matter, no matter how much others try to silence them. Her son, she'd named him Isaiah in her heart during those 3 hours, though she knew Marcus's family would choose something else, something more fitting for an Ashford heir. The envelope lay on her counter, expensive cream paper with a Manhattan return address. Pierce, Whitmore and Associates. The kind of law firm that billed by the minute and made problems disappear. Below the photograph was a single typed line. Miss Thompson, circumstances have changed regarding the arrangement made 7 years ago. Your presence is required at our offices this Friday at 2 p.m. to discuss matters concerning the minor child referenced in your previous agreement. Failure to attend may result in legal complications. This is not optional. Sincerely, G. Pierce. Senior partner Naomi read it 3 times, each word sinking deeper into her chest like stones into water. Circumstances have changed. What did that mean? Had something happened to Marcus? To his wife? The woman he'd been engaged to when he'd spent those 3 months tangled up with Naomi? Convinced he was in love before his family reminded him of his obligations? She grabbed her phone with trembling fingers and searched. Marcus Ashford IV. The results loaded slowly. News articles, society page mentions, and then, at the top, a headline from just 3 days ago. Ashford heir's wife killed in tragic accident. Pharmaceutical magnate left widowed with young son. The phone slipped from Naomi's grasp. Caroline Whitmore Ashford, dead. Which meant Marcus was alone with their son. Their son, who existed in a world so far from hers they might as well be living on different planets. A world of private schools and trust funds, polo lessons and summers in the Hamptons. A world Naomi had been paid handsomely to stay away from. She pressed her forehead against her apartment window, watching the morning traffic crawl past below. The $500,000 was long gone, spent on her mother's cancer treatments before she died 2 years ago, on her younger brother's college tuition, on keeping her family afloat when everything else was sinking. She had nothing left of that money except the memory of how it had felt to accept it, like breathing underwater, like drowning while standing perfectly still. Her phone buzzed, a text from her sister, Kennedy. Still coming for dinner tonight? Naomi stared at the message. Kennedy didn't know about Isaiah. Nobody did except Naomi's mother, who'd taken that secret to her grave, and the lawyers who'd been paid to keep it buried. Naomi had told everyone she'd taken a year off to help care for their mother, and by the time she'd come back, her pregnancy and its aftermath had become a ghost story, she told herself late at night. Can't tonight, she typed back. Something came up. Friday was 3 days away. 72 hours to prepare herself for whatever came next. But even as she tried to steel herself, a deeper fear crept through her veins like ice water. Because she knew the Ashford family, knew what they were capable of, knew that people with that much money didn't just invite complications back into their lives unless something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. The knock on her door made her jump. She wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, she could see a man in an expensive suit, early 60s, holding a leather briefcase and wearing an expression of patient determination. Her blood went cold. She didn't open the door. Couldn't. But the man spoke anyway, his voice carrying clearly through the thin wood. "Miss Thompson, my name is Gerald Pierce. I represent the Ashford family. I know you received our letter this morning. I've come to make sure you understand the gravity of your situation." He paused, and when he spoke again, his tone carried a warning that made her skin prickle. "You have 3 days to decide what kind of mother you want to be. Choose wisely." Before she could respond, before she could even process what he meant, she heard footsteps retreating down the hall. And then she heard something else that made her heart stop completely. From somewhere in the building, drifting up through the ventilation or perhaps through her imagination, she could swear she heard the sound of a child crying. A little boy calling for his mama. Naomi couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the photograph of the boy propped against her bedside lamp where she could see it even in the darkness. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, older now, a real person instead of the tiny bundle she'd held for those 3 precious hours. The memories came whether she wanted them or not. She'd been 19 and working at a coffee shop near Columbia University, serving overpriced lattes to students who spent more on textbooks than she made in a month. Marcus had come in every morning that summer, always ordering the same thing: black coffee, no sugar, and asking her name like he genuinely wanted to know. He'd been 26 then, taking business courses to prepare for his inevitable position at Ashford Pharmaceuticals, charming in a way that felt effortless, with those gold-flecked eyes that seemed to actually see her instead of looking through her the way most wealthy customers did. "You're different," he'd said one morning, lingering at the counter even though there was no line. "Everyone else here is playing a part, but you're real." She should have run, should have recognized the danger in being noticed by someone like him. But she'd been young and tired and so goddamn lonely, and when he'd asked her to dinner, she'd said yes. 3 months. That's all they'd had. 3 months of meeting in secret, of Marcus promising he was ending things with his fiancée, of Naomi believing that love could actually bridge the impossible gap between their worlds. 3 months of the best and worst time of her life. Then she'd gotten pregnant. The memory of telling him still made her chest tight. They'd been in his apartment, a penthouse in Tribeca that cost more per month than she'd see in a lifetime. She'd practiced the words 100 times, but they'd still come out shaking. "I'm pregnant. I'm keeping it. I don't expect anything from you, but I thought you should know." She'd expected shock, maybe anger. What she hadn't expected was the way his face had gone completely blank, like someone had wiped away every emotion in a single stroke. "I need to make a phone call," he'd said. Just that. Then he'd walked into his bedroom and closed the door. 2 hours later, his father arrived with a lawyer. Naomi pushed herself out of bed and walked to her window. The city sprawled below, lights twinkling like fallen stars. Somewhere out there, in a penthouse or townhouse worth millions, her son was sleeping. Maybe having nightmares about losing his mother, the only mother he'd ever known, the woman Marcus had married 3 months after Naomi signed the papers. Caroline Whitmore Ashford. Society darling, philanthropist, the perfect wife for a man destined to inherit an empire. Dead now in what the news articles called a tragic single-car accident on a private road in Connecticut. She spent the next 2 days in a fog, going through the motions at her jobs: receptionist at a dental office during the day, bartender 3 nights a week at a restaurant in Soho. She smiled at patients and poured drinks and pretended her entire world wasn't shifting beneath her feet. Friday arrived too quickly. She stood outside the offices of Pierce, Whitmore, and Associates at 1:55 p.m., wearing the best outfit she owned, a navy dress she'd bought for her mother's funeral. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place where the doorman looked at you like he could calculate your net worth at a glance. Gerald Pierce's secretary was precisely professional, with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Miss Thompson, Mr. Pierce is expecting you. Conference room B." The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Naomi had been in this building once before, 7 years ago, in a different room. She'd sat at a table just like this one while Marcus's father had slid papers across the polished surface and explained in a voice devoid of emotion exactly how this would work. $500,000, Victor Ashford had said. "In exchange, you sign away all parental rights. You never contact my son again. You never acknowledge the child's existence. You disappear completely from our lives. If you violate this agreement, we will destroy you. Do you understand? She'd understood. And she'd signed anyway, because her mother was dying and her brother needed a future. And what could she possibly give a child except struggle and poverty? Now Gerald Pierce sat in the same kind of chair Victor Ashford had occupied that day, but his expression was different. Not cold, exactly. More calculating. Miss Thompson, thank you for coming. He gestured to a seat. I'll get straight to the point. As you know, Caroline Ashford passed away 3 weeks ago. This has created a complicated situation. Naomi's throat was tight. Where's Marcus? Mr. Ashford is dealing with the aftermath of his loss. He's not in a position to handle certain matters himself at the moment. Pierce folded his hands on the table. Which brings us to you. I don't understand. The child, Elijah, has been asking questions about his mother's death, yes, but also about his birth. Caroline apparently kept a journal. Elijah found it last week. He paused. He knows about you. The world tilted. Naomi gripped the edge of the table. What? Caroline documented everything. Her infertility struggles. The arrangement Marcus made with you. The private adoption that was never quite finalized because, technically, Marcus is the biological father. It's all there, in her own handwriting. Pierce pulled out a thin folder and pushed it across the table. Less than now a 7-year-old boy is asking why his daddy paid someone to give him away. Naomi opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a photocopy of journal pages, the handwriting elegant and increasingly desperate. Marcus told me about her today, the coffee shop girl. I wanted to hate him, but all I felt was relief. If she gives us the baby, we can finally have the family his parents demand. She signed the papers. Marcus says she didn't even hesitate. I should feel grateful, but I keep thinking about her face in the photograph he showed me. She's so young. What must she think of us? I love this child. I love him so much it terrifies me. But he's not mine. He'll never fully be mine. And someday, he'll ask questions I don't know how to answer. The entries went on, year after year. Caroline's love for Elijah mixed with guilt, fear, and a growing conviction that the arrangement they'd made was poisoning everything it touched. The final entry was dated 3 days before her death. I've decided to tell Elijah the truth when he's old enough to understand. He deserves to know where he came from. Marcus disagrees, but this isn't his choice to make. I'm his mother, and his real mother deserves to know that her son is loved. Naomi couldn't breathe, couldn't think, where is he? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Where's Elijah? Pierce's expression shifted into something almost sympathetic. That's the complicated part, Miss Thompson. Because 4 days ago, Elijah disappeared from his father's estate. He leaned forward. And according to the security footage, he didn't leave alone. Someone helped him. Someone who had detailed knowledge of the property's layout and security systems. He slid another photograph across the table. This one showed a figure in dark clothes guiding a small child through what looked like a garden at night. Both of them caught in the grainy resolution of a security camera. We believe, Pierce said slowly, that someone in the Ashford family doesn't want Elijah found. And we think you might be the only person who can figure out why. Before Naomi could respond, the conference room door opened behind her. And Marcus Ashford walked in for the first time in 7 years, his eyes meeting hers with an expression that was equal parts desperation and something that looked terrifyingly like hope. He looked older. That was Naomi's first coherent thought, as Marcus stood in the doorway, backlit by the harsh fluorescent lights. 33 now, with lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His dark hair was shorter, more controlled, and he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. But those eyes, gold-flecked brown, almost amber in certain light, those were exactly the same. Naomi. Her name came out rough, like he'd been screaming or crying or both. Thank you for coming. She couldn't speak. 7 years of imagined conversations, of things she'd wanted to say. All of it evaporated in the face of seeing him again. Gerald Pierce stood smoothly. I'll give you two some privacy. You have 20 minutes before the investigator arrives. He left, closing the door with a soft click. Marcus moved to the windows, keeping distance between them. I know you have questions. Questions? Naomi's voice cracked. Our son is missing, and you think I have questions? He's not. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. He's my son, legally. The adoption was never finalized. Naomi stood, years of suppressed rage finding its voice. I read Caroline's journal. She documented everything, Marcus. How you convinced her to help you buy my baby. How you paid me to walk away so you could play happy family with a child I carried. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She was shouting now. Tell me, Marcus. Help me understand how the man who said he loved me could hand me a check and tell me to pretend our son never existed. He turned to face her, anguish in his expression. You don't know what it was like. The pressure. My father threatening to cut me off, to destroy your family if I didn't end things. He had investigators digging into your mother's immigration status, your brother's scholarship applications. He was going to ruin all of you unless I made the right choice. His hands clenched into fists. I thought I was protecting you. By paying me off. By giving you the money you needed to save your mother. By making sure your brother could go to college. His voice broke. By hating myself every single day since. The admission hit her like a physical blow. She sank back into her chair. Your wife is dead. I know. And our son is missing. I know. He moved closer, sitting across from her. Caroline's death wasn't an accident. Naomi. Someone cut her brake lines, made it look like mechanical failure. His hands were shaking. And 2 days before she died, she told me she was going to make things right. That Elijah deserved to know the truth. The implications crystallized in Naomi's chest. You think someone in your family? I think my father would do anything to protect the Ashford name, including eliminating threats. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. This was taken the night Elijah disappeared. The image showed a car parked outside what Naomi assumed was the Ashford estate. The license plate was partially visible, but what caught her attention was the figure standing beside it, Victor Ashford. He visited that evening, Marcus continued, said he wanted to see how Elijah was handling his mother's death. But the security logs show he went into his bedroom. And 3 hours later, he was gone. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. He took him, Naomi. My father took our son, and I don't know why. The journal. Caroline was going to tell Elijah the truth. If she'd written about your father threatening us, then Elijah becomes a liability. Marcus's face had gone pale. A 7-year-old who knows too much about how the Ashford family operates. We need to go to the police. And tell them what? That my billionaire father might have kidnapped his own grandson? He leaned forward. But you're his biological mother. You have rights that even my father can't completely erase. The contract might not be legal. Caroline never formally adopted Elijah. I'm listed as the father, but there's no mother on the birth certificate. He pulled out a thick envelope. I need your help. I need you to fight for him, because I can't do this alone. Naomi stared at the envelope. What's in there? Everything. Financial records showing my father's payments to make problems disappear. Emails between him and his head of security. Evidence that Caroline's accident was no accident. His eyes met hers. And proof that there's a safe house upstate, a place the family uses when they need to keep people out of sight. You think he took him there? I know he did. I hired a private investigator. He tracked my father's car to a property in the Catskills. Marcus's hand covered hers. Come with me. Help me get our son back. Why should I trust you? I was 26 and terrified. I've spent every day since trying to be the father Elijah deserves, knowing I'd never be enough because I'd given up the woman I... He stopped, swallowed hard. I can't change the past, but I can fight for the future. Before Naomi could respond, the door burst open. Gerald Pierce stood there, face ashen. We have a problem. Marcus was on his feet instantly. What? Your father just called a press conference. He's announcing that Elijah is being held by his biological mother. Pierce's eyes cut to Naomi, who he claims has a history of mental instability and made threats against the family. That's insane. He has evidence, or claims to. Phone records, emails, psychiatric evaluations. His expression was grim. He's building a case to have you arrested for kidnapping. He's framing you, Marcus said flatly. Controlling the narrative. He turned to Pierce. How long? The press conference is in 2 hours. We leave now. Marcus grabbed the envelope, thrust it at Naomi. We're going to get our son, and then we're going to burn the Ashford Empire to the ground. They were halfway to the elevator when Naomi's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was a single photo. Elijah, sitting in what looked like a bedroom, holding today's newspaper, alive, unharmed. Below it, come alone or he dies. You have 6 hours, and an address in the Catskills. Naomi looked up at Marcus, at Pierce, and realized with growing horror that she had no idea who she could trust. Naomi sat in the passenger seat of Marcus's BMW as they sped up the Taconic Parkway, the Manhattan skyline shrinking in the rearview mirror. She hadn't shown him the text message, hadn't told him about the photo of Elijah or the demand that she come alone, because if someone in that office was feeding information to Victor Ashford, she couldn't risk them knowing her next move. "You're quiet," Marcus said. "Having second thoughts?" "Just thinking." She watched the autumn landscape blur past. About what happens after, if we find him. When we find him. When? She studied his profile. "You said you have evidence. Against your father. How long have you been collecting it?" His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Since the day Caroline told me she suspected my father of bribing FDA officials, she'd found emails, payment records. She was going to go public." His voice went hollow. 3 days later, her car went off the road. They drove in silence for another 20 miles before Naomi's phone buzzed again. Another message. "I know you're not alone. Send him away when you arrive, or I start hurting him. Small things first. Maybe a finger. Your choice." Naomi's vision blurred. She fumbled for the door handle, gasping. Marcus pulled over immediately. "What's wrong?" She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the image of someone hurting Elijah. "Naomi, talk to me. I can't tell you." The words burst out. "I can't. If I do, they'll hurt him. I have to go alone." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by fury. "They contacted you. When?" "In the office." She showed him the messages, watched his face go white. "I have to do this, Marcus. That's exactly what my father wants. To separate us. He's my son." The words echoed in the car. "I gave him up once. I let you pay me to walk away. I can't abandon him again." Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, made a call. "This is Ashford. I need immediate extraction for a minor, armed protection, and medical standby at these coordinates." He rattled off the address. "ETA 2 hours. He hung up. "Private security, ex-Secret Service. They'll be there before we arrive. Staged at a distance. You go in alone like they want. But the second something goes wrong, they'll kill him. They'll try. But my father is arrogant." Marcus's expression hardened. "And he doesn't know that I'd burn down everything to keep Elijah safe." Naomi studied him. "Why didn't you fight for me when I was pregnant, when your father came with his lawyers? Why didn't you fight?" His eyes closed. "Because I was a coward. Because I believed him when he said he'd destroy you, and I couldn't bear to see that happen. I thought giving you the money was the same as protecting you, but it wasn't. And now? Now I choose you. Both of you." He opened his eyes, and they were wet. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but if you'll let me, if we can somehow get through this, I want to try, to be the man I should have been." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, nodded. "Security team is in position. 3 adults and 1 child in the main house, 2nd floor." 3 adults? My father, his head of security, Reeves, and... Marcus hesitated. "My mother, Eleanor." Naomi remembered the woman from society pages. "She's involved?" "She's always been involved. My father is the face of the empire, but my mother is the brain." His expression was bleak. "If she's there, it means this goes deeper than I thought." They exited the highway 40 minutes later, winding through increasingly remote roads until they reached a private drive. Marcus pulled over before the turn-in, killed the engine. "My team says the driveway has cameras. They'll see you coming." "Good. That's what they want." Naomi grabbed the door handle, but Marcus caught her wrist. "Wait." He pulled out a small device that looked like a button. "GPS tracker. Paste it under your collar. I'll find you." The correction was soft, but absolute. He looked at her like she might disappear again. Naomi, about earlier. What you said, I spent 7 years hating you, building up this wall. But seeing you now, hearing what you've done, she took a breath. When this is over, when Elijah is safe, I want us to try. All three of us. As a family. His expression crumbled. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. And for a moment, they just breathed together. Then, Naomi pulled away and walked toward the driveway alone. The main house came into view. A sprawling colonial with white columns and black shutters. 2 cars were parked in the circular drive. Both had Ashford vanity plates. The front door opened before she reached it. Victor Ashford stood on the threshold, silver-haired and distinguished. He looked like someone's kindly grandfather. Only his eyes betrayed the predator beneath. Miss Thompson? How punctual? His smile was all teeth. Please, come in. We have much to discuss. Naomi forced herself to climb the steps. The foyer was all marble and crystal, family portraits lining the walls. She spotted one of Marcus as a teenager, and next to it, a recent photo of Elijah, her son, smiling at the camera, wearing a school uniform, looking happy, looking loved, looking exactly like Naomi had at that age. Beautiful, isn't he? Eleanor Ashford emerged from a side room, perfectly coiffed. He has your smile. I noticed that the first time I saw him, when he was just hours old. Where is he? Naomi's voice was steady despite the fear. Where's my son? Your son? Victor's tone was musing. Interesting, considering you signed away any claim to that title 7 years ago. The adoption was never finalized. A technicality, one we've been working to rectify. He gestured toward a sitting room. Please, let's be civilized. The room was decorated in cream and gold. A man stood by the French doors, tall, broad-shouldered, the head of security. Reeves. Here's what's going to happen, Victor said, settling into an armchair. You're going to sign a new agreement, one that reaffirms your relinquishment of parental rights and includes a non-disclosure clause. In exchange, you'll receive $2 million. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money, Miss Thompson. He pulled out a folder. You have a brother at MIT. Full scholarship, but those don't cover everything. Student loans, living expenses. It would be unfortunate if something happened to jeopardize his future. You're threatening my family. I'm offering you a choice. Sign the papers, take the money, and everyone gets what they need. Or refuse, and I make sure you regret it. He leaned forward. I've done this before. I'm very good at making problems disappear. Like Caroline? The temperature dropped. Eleanor's expression went rigid. Victor's smile never wavered, but something deadly flickered in his eyes. My daughter-in-law's death was an accident. With cut brake lines? Wild accusations from a desperate woman. Be careful. You're in my house with no proof of anything. I want to see Elijah. Not until you sign. Then I'm not signing. Victor's pleasant mask finally cracked. Do you have any idea what I could do to you? I could have you arrested for kidnapping. I could destroy your credit, your employment, any chance at a normal life. I could make you disappear. Try it. Naomi stood. Because I'm not the terrified 19-year-old you bullied 7 years ago. And I'm not leaving without my son. Then you're not leaving at all. Victor nodded to Reeves. Lock her in the East Wing. We'll deal with her after we handle the other problem. What other problem? Eleanor's smile was knife-sharp. You think we didn't know about Marcus's security team? We've been tracking his movements for weeks. Right about now, they're being rounded up by people much better equipped. No. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made everyone freeze. And then Elijah appeared in the doorway, wearing his pajamas, his dark curls wild. He looked between the adults with those gold-flecked eyes, Marcus's eyes, and when his gaze landed on Naomi, something shifted in his expression. Recognition. You're her, Elijah whispered. You're my real mom. The room exploded into motion. Reeves lunged for the boy, but Naomi was faster, shoving past Eleanor and grabbing Elijah, pulling him close. Don't touch him! Naomi? Victor's voice held a warning. But Elijah was wrapping his arms around Naomi's waist, and the feel of her son, solid and real and alive, shattered every defense she had left. I read Mama Caroline's journal, Elijah said. She said you loved me. She said you gave me up because the bad men made you. Is that true? Naomi's vision blurred. Yes, sweetheart. That's true. And now you came back for me. Yes. Victor stood slowly, touching, but ultimately pointless. Reeves, separate them. The security chief moved forward, but before he could reach them, the French doors burst inward in an explosion of glass and splintering wood. Marcus stood in the opening, flanked by 4 men in tactical gear, all armed. His face was bloody, his suit torn, but his eyes were clear and furious. "Get away from my family," he said quietly. Now. The standoff lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. Naomi held Elijah tighter, feeling her son's heartbeat against her ribs. Too fast. Terrified. Marcus's tactical team had weapons trained on Reeves, who'd frozen. Eleanor had gone pale. Only Victor seemed unmoved. He stood with his hands in his pockets, studying his son. "You brought guns into my home," Victor said mildly. "To threaten your own parents. Over what? A child who isn't even legally yours? He's my son, and he's standing next to his mother. His real mother, who you tried to erase." Marcus moved into the room slowly, his team maintaining positions. Blood dripped from a cut above his eyebrow. "Your people weren't as good as you thought. We expected them. Clever boy." Victor's smile held no warmth. "You get that from your mother, the planning, the contingencies. You taught me that power is the only thing that matters, that people are chess pieces to be moved and sacrificed." Marcus's voice was ice. "But Caroline taught me something better before you killed her. She taught me that love is worth fighting for." "Love?" Victor spat the word. "Love is for poor people who can't afford better options." "Finish that sentence," Marcus interrupted softly, "and I will put a bullet in your knee." Eleanor gasped. "Marcus, shut up, mother. You helped him kill Caroline. You're just as guilty." He pulled out his phone. "I'm going to send an email now. 1 click, and every file I've compiled on the Ashford family's criminal activities goes to the FBI, the SEC, the Justice Department, and 50 journalists. You wouldn't dare. Try me." Marcus's finger hovered over the screen. "Bribery, insider trading, FDA corruption. 3 suspicious deaths connected to whistleblowers. And Caroline's murder, complete with evidence that you ordered Reeves to cut her brake lines. You have no proof. I have Reeves's service records. I have garage footage from the night before Caroline's accident, showing him working on her car. I have financial transfers from your private account to his." Marcus took another step forward. "And I have Caroline's journal. All of it, including the pages where she documented your threats." Victor's expression finally showed cracks. That journal was destroyed. Caroline was smart. She knew you'd come for it, so she made copies, digital copies, stored in 3 different cloud services. Marcus's smile was terrible. She was protecting Elijah from you. Silence fell, broken only by Elijah's quiet breathing against Naomi's chest. "So here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued. "You're going to sign over full custody of Elijah to his biological parents. You're going to transfer $10 million to Naomi's account, not as payment, but as child support for 7 years you stole. And you're going to resign from Ashford Pharmaceuticals." "Absolutely not. Option 2 is I send these files and you spend the rest of your life in federal prison. Your choice, but you're making it right now." Victor looked to Eleanor, who stood frozen. He looked to Reeves, who had slowly raised his hands, then back to Marcus. "You'd destroy your own family. You already did that." Marcus's voice broke slightly. "The day you decided your empire was more important than people. The day you killed Caroline. The day you tried to erase Elijah's mother." He wiped blood from his face. "I'm just finishing what you started. It took 20 minutes to finalize the documents. Lawyers were called, independent ones Marcus had retained. Signatures were witnessed. Accounts were verified. Through it all, Naomi held Elijah, whispering promises into his hair. "I'm here now. I'm not leaving you. I'm so sorry." "It wasn't your fault," Elijah whispered back. "Mama Caroline told me. She said you were brave." The words cracked something in Naomi's chest. She looked up to find Marcus watching them, his expression raw. When it was done, Marcus's team escorted Victor and Eleanor out. Reeves was arrested. Marcus had already coordinated with law enforcement. The house fell quiet. Marcus dropped into a chair, exhaustion showing. I need to make some calls. Legal team, custody arrangements, restraining orders. Later. Naomi shifted Elijah slightly. Right now, I think someone wants to meet his father. Elijah looked between them. This 7-year-old who'd lost one mother and just gained another. Are you and Daddy going to get married? The question was so unexpected that both adults froze. Naomi started. We need to, Marcus said at the same time. Elijah's face fell. Oh, no, sweetheart, Naomi cupped his face. It's not that simple. Your father and I have a complicated history. But you love each other. It wasn't a question. I can tell. You look at each other the way Mama Caroline said you used to. Marcus moved to kneel in front of them. I love your mother very much. I have since the day I met her. But love isn't always enough. Sometimes people make mistakes so big that... So fix them. Elijah's tone was matter of fact. Mama Caroline used to say that's what grown-ups do. They fix their mistakes. Naomi felt tears streaming down her face. Your mama was very wise. She was sad a lot, though, especially near the end. She said she wished she could make different choices. Be braver. Elijah leaned into Naomi. I don't want you guys to be sad. I don't want to wish you'd been braver. Marcus looked at Naomi over their son's head, and in that moment, 7 years collapsed. She saw the boy who'd loved her, who'd promised her the world. But she also saw the man he'd become, someone who'd spent years building weapons to fight his own family, who'd risked everything for a son and a love he thought he'd lost. I don't have a ring, Marcus said quietly. I don't have pretty words prepared, but I have 7 years of regret and the rest of my life to make up for it. If you'll let me. I forgive you. The words came easier than expected. I forgave you the moment I saw you walk through those doors ready to fight for us. She smiled through tears. But forgiveness and trust are different. Trust has to be earned. I know. And I will. Every day. He glanced at Elijah. We will. Both of us. Both of us. Elijah agreed solemnly, then added, Does this mean I get a puppy? Grandpa Victor never let me have a puppy. Naomi laughed, the sound startling her. We'll talk about the puppy. That's grown up for yes, Elijah informed Marcus confidently. That's grown up for maybe, Naomi corrected, but she was smiling. They stayed like that, the three of them in that room full of shattered glass and broken legacies, building something new from the wreckage. Outside, the autumn sun was setting. Marcus's security team moved through the house, securing it, documenting evidence. But Naomi barely noticed. All she could feel was Elijah's weight against her. All she could see was Marcus looking at them like they were his entire world. 6 months later, Naomi stood in the kitchen of their new brownstone in Brooklyn. Not a mansion, but a real home that Marcus had bought and put in all 3 of their names. She was making pancakes while Elijah sat at the counter doing homework, occasionally stealing chocolate chips. Mom, how do you spell perseverance? Elijah asked. Mom, the word still made her heart skip. She spelled it out. What's this for? We have to write about someone we admire. I'm writing about you and Dad, about how you fought for me. Naomi's eyes burned. That's beautiful, sweetheart. The front door opened. Marcus came in carrying groceries and flowers, looking rumpled in jeans and a sweater. He'd resigned from Ashford Pharmaceuticals, started working with a nonprofit focused on pharmaceutical transparency. Destroying his family's corrupt empire had been good for his soul. Something smells amazing, he said, kissing Elijah's head and then moving to Naomi, his hand finding the small of her back. Chocolate chip pancakes, Naomi confirmed. Your son keeps stealing the chips, though. Our son, Marcus corrected gently. He pulled out a small box from his jacket. And speaking of our son, he helped me pick something out. Thought it was time. Naomi's breath caught. The box was velvet, ring-sized. You said trust had to be earned, Marcus continued. I've been trying, every day. Being present, being honest, being the partner and father I should have been. He set the box between them. I know 6 months isn't enough to erase 7 years, but it's enough. Naomi picked up the box with shaking hands. Marcus, it's enough. Inside was a simple gold band with 3 small stones, emerald, amber, and onyx. Birthstones. May for her, November for Marcus, September for Elijah. It represents all of us, Elijah explained, bouncing. Dad said the stones are us, together, like a family. It's perfect, Naomi looked at Marcus. You're perfect. This is perfect. So is that a yes? Marcus was smiling, but she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. Instead of answering, Naomi kissed him, deep and sure and full of promise. When they broke apart, Elijah was making exaggerated gagging sounds, but his grin was huge. Definitely a yes, Naomi whispered. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit like it had always belonged there. That night, after Elijah was asleep and they sat curled together on the couch, Marcus asked quietly, "Do you ever regret it? The money you could have had if you'd stayed quiet?" Naomi thought about it. About the 500,000 7 years ago that had saved her mother but couldn't save her soul. About the 10 million Victor had been forced to transfer, which now sat in a trust for Elijah's future. About the brownstone and the nonprofit work, and the simple beauty of building a life based on truth. No, she said finally. The easier path would have destroyed us. This path, the messy, difficult, worth fighting for path, this is the one that brought us home. Marcus pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Home. I like the sound of that. Through the window, New York glittered against the night sky. Somewhere in that vast city, Victor and Eleanor Ashford were living their diminished lives. Somewhere, other families were fighting their own battles. But here, in this brownstone with its creaking floors and too small kitchen, Naomi had everything that mattered. A son who called her mom. A man who'd proven love was worth more than empires. And a future they'd fought like hell to claim. She closed her eyes and let herself believe that happy endings were possible. Even for coffee shop girls who dared to love billionaires' sons. Even for families born from heartbreak and built on hope. Even for second chances that should have been first chances all along.